Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. About a month ago, a viewer by the name of Chris commented on one of my old videos. It was the Butler method video on how to do turned in edges on your zipper tape and a tab on the other side. Her request was to do the same thing but have a longer or an extending zipper tape so that when you open your bag you can actually get right inside and see everything that's on the inside instead of being inhibited by the tabs that you might have on the ends of your bags. That's what we're doing today. A cute little cosmetic pouch. I suppose you could pop a Kindle in there if you wanted to. You can put anything you like if it's going to be yours. So let's get to it. I'll show you how to make this with the turned in zips, which is also known as the Butler method, and a wide opening zipper tape at the end. Let's get to it. Okay, here's what we need to start. I've got 2 pieces of fabric that I'm going to use for the outer fabric, 2 pieces for the lining, and this is just a lightweight cotton, and I'm also using 2 pieces of fusible fleece. The product I'm using is called Parlan. It's a really lightweight fusible. We want 2 of those, and I've already gone and fused that to the back of my outer fabric. So we've got 2 outers, 2 inners. We want 1 piece for the tab. Now the tab size is going to be determined by the type of zipper that you use. Today we're going to be using a regular number 3 dress zip, but you can use a number 5 continuous zip or whatever else you might have at hand. The size of the tab that you needs to be 3/4 of an inch wider than the zipper tape. So if you've got tape that is 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres wide, then you will make that 1 3/4 of an inch or 4.5 centimetres, because we need to wrap the folded edges under. And if you're using the number 5 zip, then this measures 1 1/4 inches. So I would cut my tab 2 inches wide, which would be 5 centimetres. The length is 3.5 inches or 9 centimetres. I don't need this one today. I'm going to show you how to make this one using a regular dress zip. And I'm using a 40 centimetre or 16 inch zip. So the first thing you want to do is stabilise your fabric. And if you haven't done that yet, you can go and do that now. Now it really doesn't matter about the shape of your fabric either. If you wanted to have box corners down here and you wanted your bag to come out diagonally or wider at the top than at the bottom, you can leave your fabric square as it is, like this, or as a rectangle. But we're going to taper the sides on this today, just to kind of make this bag a little bit more square rather than a triangular shape. So on the top, I'm going to come in 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres on both sides. And on the bottom, I'm going to come up 1 inch. And then we'll mark a line from there to here. And we'll repeat for the other side. Then we're going to make sure we have our fabric orientation the right way. I'll place both of these layers together. And I'm going to place my lining pieces together as well. So when you put your fabric together, you want to have right sides together, or you can have wrong sides together. And then we can cut that out. So we've tapered the side of our bag. I'm not going to do anything with the box corners at this stage. I'm going to worry about that at the end of the bag because it's too much brain work for me at the moment. So let's get started on the zip. So there we have our 2 fabric pieces, and this one here needs to sit like that when we put the bag pieces together. So we need to be mindful of that when we're placing our zipper tape down. Now we need to make an allowance for our seam. I'm going to use a 3/8 inch or 1 centimetre seam allowance. I'll show you on this side. I'm going to be using a 3/8 inch or 1 centimetre seam allowance. Which will go all the way down on both sides. So that will be our stitching line. When we put our zipper tape on, we're going to be flipping this back. The zipper tape will be flipped out and back like this. And the end of the zip needs to be clear of the stitching line. So I'm going to make a little mark here, measure that, and that's another 3/8 of an inch. So the bend in the zipper tape will be around about here. So the entire measurement that we have now is 2 centimetres or 3/4 of an inch. So this is where our zip will end on this side. And you'll make the same mark on the other side. Now, this actually needs to be marked on the front, not on the back, but obviously this is much easier to see. So I've made my mark on the front of the fabric here, which is 2 centimetres from the outside edge, and that's the end position of my zipper tape. And we're going to be trimming both ends of this back soon as well, so we don't need to worry about the metal clips that are on the zip. But what I will do for now is line up that metal clip with the edge of my fabric, and that mark that I've made on the fabric I'm going to transfer to the zipper tape. And I'll also transfer that mark to the back. Then we're going to open that out all the way. And for now I'm just going to clip this together, lining up those marks, and I'm only clipping this together so that I can mark the position of the tape at this end, which is right here. And we'll mark that on both sides of the tape. And now we can start installing the zip. So I'm going to use double-sided tape. So let's take that paper off, and we're going to line up this zipper tape faced down. So I want the teeth faced down and down here, and the straight edge of your tape along the top. And we can line that up evenly across there. Now this side here, where that metal stopper is, we're just going to fold this out to that line that we've marked. And just clip that in place. At this end, we want to move this zipper tape out of the way of the stitching line. So when we're sewing this zip in place, You need to be mindful of the position of your stitching line. I like to sew as close as I can to the teeth here, so I will sew around about here because I can get nice and close to my teeth. So when I'm coming down to this end, I need to move this tape out of the way. I'll be sewing along here, and with this being 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch, what I need to do is actually bring this zipper tape down. And if I just move that out of the way for a moment and continue that seam allowance. So if you're stitching at 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch from the edge of your zipper tape, I've marked a line along here, which is the same distance. And what's going to happen is that you'll be stitching all the way along and you'll continue on all the way to the end. So where this line is marked here and here, what you'll do is just move the tape down until it meets that intersection. And when you're making these bags, normally you're not going to be drawing these lines, you're just going to know where to actually move your tape to. Move that out of the way like that, and we're just going to sew all the way across. You can grab your lining fabric, and that is going to sit directly over the top. So you want the right sides facing. And I'm going to run some double-sided tape along the entire piece now. And I'll place my lining over the top and press that in place. Let's take this over to the sewing machine and we can sew that in place. Now I'm going to be sewing with the stabilised fabric at the top rather than the lining faced up, because there's less chance of the fabric shifting. Even though I'm using double-sided tape, sometimes the lighter fabric will move. So we'll sew all the way across. When you get to the zipper teeth here, just double stitch over that a bit. So I've marked my stitching line here just so that you can see whereabouts I'm sewing. And make sure that the end of your zipper tape is out of the way here. And when you get to the end here, just make sure that you've got that tape folded out nicely, that there are no metal bars in the way. And if you like, you can stitch at the top end here just to secure that in place, but you don't need to. So let's have a look at this. Press the lining away from the zip. And we're not going to be top stitching this just yet, we're going to be doing that at the end. So you do want to press this really well. So that's looking nice at this end, and that's come out nicely at the other end, with plenty of room for our seam allowance. Now we can do the other side. So let's grab the other piece. And remember this one, we're going to have the folded end of the zipper over on the right hand side. And we're just going to flip this down, line up those markings that we made earlier. And once again, I've gone and marked in my 1 centimetre or 3/8 inch seam across here, because that's that stitching line that will continue on. And I'm just going to bring that point down to the corner here. And I'll clip that in place. I'll run another strip of tape all the way along. But before I adhere this side, I'm going to flip this out away from the body of the fabric and fold that up to the line, and I'll secure that in place. So that tape will hold that whilst I get the lining on. So we want right side spacing. And we'll go and sew that zipper in place as well, and we'll sew from the stabilised side. So I'll back stitch here and continue on to the end. And again, if you want to reinforce that, you can. So that side's done, and what we can do now is trim off that excess bit of zipper tape. We don't need that. We don't need the other one either. And now we can see how this has turned out. Press your fabric away from the zipper tape. And you might need to untwist that and close that up and have a look and see if that lines up. So that looks nice at this end, and at this end it's come out almost evenly, but I can live with that. Now we're still not going to top stitch yet, and I actually hate that I can't top stitch just yet, but it's going to be easier to do it at the end. So one thing you can do to keep your lining and your outer fabric nice and even underneath, obviously you'll go and press your lining fabric away from your zip. And if you've got one of those rollers, I've got one somewhere, one of these things, you can just press that down, or you can iron it, or you can use double-sided tape, which is what I love to do. So I've already put double-sided tape on one side, but what you can do is just run a bit of double-sided tape along the fused section or the outer fabric. And I only ever use a double-sided tape that I can sew over. That way it's not going to gum up my needles. So you can just press that down, and that will help keep that nice and flat when you go and do the top stitching later. So let's finish this up. We'll sew up the side seams. First we're going to open up the zip at least halfway. We can just open it all the way. Bring your side edges together, separate the lining. We're going to line up our seams at the top. So you want to make sure that's nice and even at the top there. I'm going to leave an opening on my side seam. The bag's big enough that I can leave a decent sized opening there. You want to bring your zip to the inside now. So let's close this up part of the way. Pop a pin in there to keep it on the inside. Line up that top edge as well. Okay, so I'm leaving an opening here. I'll sew all the way around and then we can box our corners. So I'm going to put my needle down into the work first. That way the fabric's not going to shift as I go over the bulk. And I'm going to be using my 1 centimetre seam allowance, or 3/8 of an inch. And just remember that we've come down on the diagonal here, but then we've got it straight at the corner. I'll flip it over and do the other side first. And once again, I'll put my needle down. And then I'll sew the bottom seam. And then we'll do the lining. I'll backstitch here. And I'll leave an opening for turning through. All right, now that that's all sewn together, we can box our corners. We've got a tapered edge along here and a straight edge along here. We're still going to do our 1 inch box corner. Well, that's the size I'm choosing today. But when you do that measurement, you need to make sure you measure at the bottom and at the top edge, because it's going to be kind of a skewed boxed corner. So I'm doing 2.5 centimetres or 1 inch, and that's from the stitching line. And then I'm going to come up and make another mark there, and along the bottom here we're going to go straight across. And if I connect these lines, you can see that that's still a 1 inch box corner, top and bottom, but it's going along the same shape of the side of the bag. So we can do that on all 4 corners. So make a little mark from the corner out, and then along here mark your 1 inch, and you can keep going up marking that 1 inch until you connect those dots. So it's forming the same angle as we have on the side, and then from the bottom we'll measure 1 inch there and there, and we've got a nice even boxed corner. And that will help the bottom of the bag sit a little bit better. What we can do is just bring the lining and the outer fabric together, and we can cut everything out at the same time. So I'll clip those edges together. Now if we cut this out right now, we're going to have a bigger boxed corner than we have at the top. Even though we've tapered this in by 1 inch, if you have a look at the top seam up here, and this guide coming all the way down here, our red line that I've marked is actually 3/8 of an inch in, and that's the seam allowance that I've got on the side here. So in order to try and get this bag as straight as I possibly can, I actually don't want this to be my cutting line. I want this to be my stitching line. So I will measure 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch, and I'll cut that out instead. And I'll do the same on this side as well. Now, it's not a problem if I cut the box corner out a little bit bigger. My seam allowance would end up being way out here. But you're better off cutting something too small than too big, and then you can cut extra out if you want to later. So I'm just going to have this section cut out, and that will be my seam allowance along there. We can cut out all the layers together. Let's pinch out our corners. And we're going to line up the centre seam. We're going to line up the seam across here. And you can see you've got a nice straight edge along the cut edge. You can press your seams open or closed, it's up to you. I like mine to go in opposing directions. I'll do the same for the other one. And on the bottom, where I've got this seam going this direction, I want this end to do the same. So now we can grab the corner, grab the lining, pinch that out as well. So we've got our lining and our outer corners ready to go. What we can do now, so that the lining stays inside the bag, is just bring this seam together, line up those box corners along that seam, and we're just going to clip them together. You've seen me do this in the book bags and the utility bags. It's a really nice way of just keeping your linings inside your bag. And again, we'll grab that one. And put all that together. And now we can go back to the machine, and with our seam allowance of 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch, double stitch right along here and here. Okay, let's find the opening. We can turn this bag the right way out. You can trim that back if you want to. I think I will a little bit just to neaten it up. And before we poke out our corners, we're going to open the zip all the way, remove that pin, turn the bag inside out. Now, if you have a free arm on your machine, you can leave your bag turned the right way out. But if you've got a flat bed like I do, then it's actually going to be easier to do your top stitching when your bag is inside out. So you can see the really nice corners now, and that lining is attached to the outer fabric, so they're not going to come apart. The side seam along here, I'm going to pinch those edges together, and we'll stitch that closed. We're also going to go to the machine and top stitch. So make sure you've got that sitting nice and flat. You want the lining away from the zip. Same with the outer fabric. And that double-sided tape that I used earlier will help that sit in place. But if not, you can just put some clips in to hold the fabric down like that. So I'm going to start sewing the top stitching from the side end of the zip that's got the flappy tape. I'll start sewing here, top stitch all the way around. All right, let's finish this up. So just make sure that lining is sitting underneath and that everything else is nice and flat. And then we can close up that opening. Let's turn this the right way. We can close up the bag. And we've got the zipper sitting nicely on the top there. We've got a really long tail, and we're going to be cutting this down to whatever length you'd like it to be. But there's our nicely shaped bag with nice corners at the bottom there. Needs a good press though. So we need to put our tab on here. Now you can make this as long as you like, and I've just had an idea. If you leave this long and you put your tab on the end, you can put a little plastic snap on here and on the side as well, and you could kind of make that a little carry handle. We're not going to do that, but it's just an idea that came to me just then. Let's do our tab. What we want to do, I'm going to cut the metal tab off. And as I said, you can have this tail as long or short as you like. Chris, that asked me to do this video, said just a couple of inches. So I might chop a little bit extra off. So what I'm going to do here is centre, I'll just take this bit, I'm going to centre this zipper tape over the fabric. And from the wrong side, we're going to place this on the end of the zipper tape here. And we'll stitch that in place. And it doesn't really matter how far in you come, but you want to be able to fold this over and then fold this over again later. So I'm going to do about 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch. So I've got the wrong side of my zipper tape. I've got the right side of the fabric facing the wrong side. And I'll just stitch between those marked lines. And we've got that attached like that. So with that done, we need to fold the edges over to enclose the zip and also to hide our raw edges. And the easiest way to do that is with double-sided tape, because upholstery fabric or furnishing fabric doesn't fold or crease very well. It just makes it a little bit easier to hold the fabric in place. Fold this edge over so that it covers the zip and sits nice and evenly. So that's nice and even on that side. And You can trim this back if you don't want to have a really long tab on the end, you don't have to, but we want to fold this edge under as well. And you can bring that up to meet the folded edge on the other side. So this will end up making quite a long tab. So once you've got the long edges folded, fold in the short edge, bring that up to meet the fold on the other side, and we can sew all the way around. So there we go, the bag is completely finished now. You have your turned in zipper at this end here. Your bag opens up all the way. The zip extends all the way. You've got a couple of inches, probably about 3 inches extra, plus a good sized tab to hang on to. I'll pop one of these little zipper pulls on in a minute, and a nice shaped bag. Sometimes these things don't fit through the hole in the zip, so what I do is take a strand of thread and pop that through the loop, and then put both strands through the hole that you have in the zip slider, and give that a tug, and that will help pull that through. When I had hair, I actually used to use my hair as the thread to pull it through, but I can't do that these days. There we go, it's all finished, and it's very cute, isn't it? I do love this fabric, and I'm pleased that I actually went and used a regular dress zip today instead of using my continuous zips. I usually use a solid black, and I think for this fabric the pink looks nice. But anyway, we have the wide opening zipper with our hidden zipper ends on the side there, and a good spacious bag. So it's a fairly easy one to make. It's a technique that I will use in future bags that I might make for the shop. This one, I think I've got lots of this fabric, so I might even make a few of these. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Is it a good size? I might put this in the shop for $35. I'll see how it goes. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.